Krishna's consorts are in three categories. And the queens in Dwarka and the young gopis in Vrindavan. What was the third one? Milkmaids. Yeah, yeah. So, and all three of them are expansions or come from expansions of Srimati Radharani. In one sense, what Lalita Madhava is doing is giving some of the details. How is that? So maybe I spent a lot of time with this. It was time well spent, going over what our acharyas have written about this fact. So the fact is Radharani, as Krishna expands, Radharani expands. Krishna expands, Krishna is the source of all expansions. And Radharani, in the Radha Tattva category, in the Shakti of Shaktiman, she expands her Shaktis. And she expands to accommodate Krishna's expansions to facilitate Krishna's enjoyment in various ways. And that's who Radharani is. So we're going to hear something more about who Radharani is in this class. But as we go along, the picture will become a little complicated, but then also a little more clear who Radharani is. She's multifaceted, like Krishna. So when we first hear about Krishna, it's pretty simple. And then we start hearing more about Krishna, it's like very involved. Very involved. And we hear about Radharani, it's pretty simple, but she's serving Krishna in so many ways. You probably heard some presentations on Balaram. And Balaram, remember that chart yesterday? It shows there's the internal, there's the external, and there's the marginal potency. And then the internal potency has different names: Chit Shakti, Swarup Shakti, Antaranga Shakti, internal potency, different names, all in the same box. And then down below, there was three categories. They're all part of the Chit Shakti: Sandini, Samvit, and Ladini. So we know Radharani's Ladini. She's an aspect of Krishna's Swarup Shakti, or his internal potency. Balaram is the presiding personality from whom the Sandini potency comes, which means everything in the spiritual world is manifest through the agency of Balaram and Balaram's potencies. That means everything, like the abode, Krishna's garments, Krishna's paraphernalia, Krishna's body. Not like once upon a time there wasn't Krishna's body and then the Sandini potency made Krishna's body. It's just describing the ontology or the relationship. And Balaram is serving Krishna in all those different ways. Krishna is the presiding personality of the cognizant potency, or Sanvit potency, and Radharani's in charge. She's the presiding deity. She is the manifestation of Krishna's Ladini Shakti, and we're going to hear some more about how that is so. And so she is his internal potency, or an aspect of his internal potency, and a most important one, because he's Rasaraj. He's the enjoyer of all rasas, and he's enjoyer of everything. He is enjoyment, and she is his enjoyment potency, and they're inseparable. You can't separate them. They're inseparable. And then there's pastimes. It's a fascinating mystery. So let's proceed. So this evening is Krishna's childhood pastimes. We heard his different appearances. So now comes some of his childhood pastimes. One of them we heard very briefly already. No, there was the pastime of Krishna's appearance, where Vrishabhanu had a strong desire. Remember, or just to go quickly. Vrishabhanu and Kirtida had a very strong desire to have a daughter. Nanda and Yashoda had a strong desire to have a son. No children came. They moved from their ancestral home, Nandagram and Varsana, and went to the eastern side of the river Yamuna. And one evening, when Vrishabhanu was going early in the morning before the sun came up to take his bath, he saw something very wonderful. He saw a glow, a golden glow in the middle or within the river Yamuna that was never there before. And as he got closer and closer, he saw it was a lotus with a golden female girl sitting in the midst of that lotus. And as he approached, he picked up the girl and brought the girl and gave the girl to Kirtida, saying, "Let us accept this child as our daughter." So that was one of the appearances. Now, Narada Muni, knowing that Krishna had appeared and knowing that Radharani had appeared, he wanted to visit Vrindavan, because in Goloka, we don't see the childhood pastimes of Krishna. I mean, we don't see, but they're not manifest. According to Rupa Goswami, the eternal age of Krishna is 16. In Goloka Vrindavan, he doesn't manifest pastimes below 16. And Radharani is just slightly younger than him, some number of days. So Narada Muni was very eager during this particular day of Brahma. Krishna's made his appearance, so he wanted to see Krishna's childhood form, baby Krishna. So Narada Muni paid a visit to Boma Vrindavan. And one of the first places he went was to visit the house of Nanda in Gokula. Now, some of you have been to Vrindavan, and those of you that have been to Vrindavan, most likely you've also visited Gokula. And commonly, when we go visit Gokula, we visit Raval, which is the birthplace of Radharani, but we don't go to the place where Nanda Maharaj had his home in Gokula. The reason we don't go is the priests of that temple are super aggressive. They're like super aggressive, so we don't take groups there. Sometimes I've seen some photographs. It's a nice looking place, but the pandas are not nice, so we don't take pilgrims there. But they're on the eastern side, both Raval and the place of Nanda, on the eastern side of the river Jamuna. So that's where Narada Muni went, to the house of Nanda Maharaj, and there he saw little child Krishna in his baby form. How wonderful to behold. And some nice images of little baby Krishna enjoying his nap. nice peacock feather, and so forth and so on. And then Narada began to consider, since Krishna has appeared, surely Radharani has also appeared. And so he decided to try to find out where she is. We mentioned this yesterday. So he did what sannyasis are sometimes asked to do, but he voluntarily went from house to house. He wanted to bless little babies, especially baby girls. And each place he went, he blessed the baby girls, but it wasn't Radharani. But he was very eager, this is important, being eager to see Krishna, or being eager to be in service to Krishna, then Krishna manifests, and same for Radharani. So eventually he made his way to Ravel, and when he went to the home of King Vrishabhanu, Vrishabhanu received him very nicely, as a Vaishya would receive a super elevated Brahmana, and Narada Muni did what Narada Muni did at all the other places. He said, "Do you have any small children? I'd like to give my blessings." And Vrishabhanu said, "Well, I have a small son." And his small son's name, we mentioned this yesterday, the elder brother of Radharani, his name is Sridham. Sridham? You sure? Sridham. And so he wasn't disappointed. Sridham became one of Krishna's very dear friends during their childhood pastimes. Naturally so. So blessings to Sridham. And Narada Muni was about to go, and Vrishabhanu said, "Well, actually, I do have a newborn daughter, but she's blind, deaf, and dumb. And you're a great Brahmana, so maybe you can do some special blessings and she can regain her eyesight and be able to speak and be able to hear." He said, "Oh, let me see. Take me to the room." So they took him to the room where Radharani was, and as soon as he walked in the room where Radharani was, his whole body erupted in ecstasy. He knew exactly, this is Radharani in a little baby girl form. So he said, "I have to do some mantras and some rituals, and I have to have the door locked, and you give me all the paraphernalia I need." And he literally worshipped Radharani in her little baby form. And when he left the room, he said, "Well, the mantras didn't work, but I have another suggestion. You can hold a big festival, and in that big festival, auspiciousness will be generated. And when that auspiciousness is generated, then her good, natural, healthy condition may be restored. So invite all of the elevated personalities. Be sure to invite Nanda and Jasoda." Of course, they would invite Nanda and Jasoda. They were dear friends, both living in Gokula for the same reason, and both had success. One had a son, one had a daughter. So the story that's narrated, how Radharani opened her eyes, is when this big festival took place. Of course, Vrishabhanu and Kirtida, they were very involved in receiving their guests nicely, and everyone was enjoying nicely. And as they were enjoying very nicely, Krishna wasn't being watched, so he toddled over to the place where Srimati Radharani was lying in her little baby crib. And as he crawled over to the baby crib and reached over the top of the baby crib, there's some nice illustrations, she opened her eyes for the first time. And when she opened her eyes for the first time, she also called out in a loud cry. And it wasn't one of those screamy kind of cries. It was a nice, pleasant kind of a cry. Those of you that are householders, you don't mind, but this was a very special Radharani cry, seeing Krishna for the first time. And Krishna was very happy, and Radharani was very happy, and Yashoda, Kirtida, and Vrishabhanu were also very happy. The mercy of Narada Muni has worked, because we did what Narada Muni said. Now our young daughter is no longer blind, deaf, and dumb. He cured her. But the understanding is that Radharani had no desire to see anyone other than Krishna, to speak anything other than Krishna, and to hear anything other than Krishna's words. And that's our little Srimati Radharani from the very beginning of her birth in childhood. As time passed, now there's different narrations of the following, but she received, we all know this one, she received a boon from Durvasa Muni. Now I'm going to parallel two different narrations. One is the one I've heard many, many, many times, and the other is directly from Bhakti Purushottam Swami's book about Srimati Radharani. It's a nice collection, and it's a little different than what I'm used to hearing, so I'll narrate both. So what you're going to see on the screen here is his version, and I'll do the other version a little bit as we go along. In the palace of Vrishabhanu, Radharani passed her childhood playing with her sakis. And it gives a description of some of the different things that she did. Here we see her with a peacock. She had natural affection also for calves, and the calves naturally for her, and very beautiful and nicely decorated, and very curious, very sweet, very playful, very happy little Srimati Radharani. And in due course of time, there were other young girls her age, the Sakis, or the young gopis, and they would enjoy their activities as little girls would enjoy their activities. But of course, the eyes and the heart and the mind of Radharani eternally are involved with Krishna. So whatever it is that they would do would be with Krishna consciousness. Here they're making some beads and just enjoying life as little girls will enjoy life. So one day, in Gokul, who would appear but Durvasa Muni? And while they were absorbed in play, Durvasa Muni arrived at Vrishabhanu's palace. Now the version that I've heard is the girls were out in a field, and Durvasa Muni came along. And immediately they recognized a great sage. They didn't know him by name. They ran up to him, little girls running up to a great sage. "Oh, great sage, welcome to Vrindavan. Is there some service we can do for you?" The version I like and am accustomed to. He said, "Yes. I've been traveling and I've been fasting for a long time, and I'm very hungry. I'd like something to eat." So the little girls looked at each other and they said, "Well, we're off in the middle of the field, so we'll go back to our homes and make something very quickly. We'll come back very quickly." This is now Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj. Durvasa Muni said, "You expect me to eat this?" And the girls said, "You don't understand. Radharani is really qualified. Just try one and see if you like it." dubious. He looked at the biscuit, looked at the girls, looked at the biscuit, looked at the girls. He took a bite, and it was amazing. And he ate the whole batch of biscuits. And then he gave his benediction to Radharani. So that's we'll hear the benediction. It's the same as in this book, but here's Bhakti Purushottam Swami's version. The Sakis all ran away when Durvasa Muni's got this reputation. Look out. Don't cross Durvasa Muni. We're out of here. But Radharani didn't. She stayed, and she wanted to do some service for a great saintly person, elevated person. And Durvasa Muni was very charmed